What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops crew. And as if it wasn't already hard enough to deal with a prelim final loss, but another turning of the knife has occurred for Cats fans, with the club having to go through its normal processes, exit meetings and the like. And we've learned that on top of Tom Hawkins and on top of Zach Tui, another 7 players will be departing the Geelong Football Club, effective immediately, really. And it's a lot. It's a big number when we talk about 9 players departing the club in the off season. And there's always the potential for more on top of that as well. 9 players departing the club, and it's a lot of talented individuals that are leaving. Some that have been at the club for a long time, others that have tasted premiership success with the Cats, others that have been yet to debut and potentially have lots of untapped potential. As I said, it's a lot. And so we're going to wade through all of it. We're going to talk a little bit more about what it means going forward as well. So if anyone hasn't already checked it out, and you do need to be a patron of the Hoops crew to check this one out, but I have done everyone a solid and posted the unlisted link in the show notes here. So if you want to kind of catch my episode of the Scratching Post, which I posted on the Hoops crew Patreon there, usually exclusive for patrons, you can go check out that little recording there that was done basically on my way to the supermarket not long after the news broke, kind of working through it in my own head and paying a bit of respect to the 7 departing players. Because in this video, we're going to get a bit more future focused and look at, well, what does it mean with these 7 plus Hawkins and Tui gone? Who comes in? What sort of players are we looking to recruit? So on and so forth. But before we get to any of that, a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist, established in Geelong since 1915. Visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au. That's Cook with an E. Give them a call on 035 222 2244 or mention the Hoops Crew to get yourself 20% off your next in-store purchase when you visit them at Shop 12, 11 Leather Street in Breakwater.
And so if you haven't checked out that unlisted link, and again, it's in the show notes, go check it out. It takes you to an unlisted video that I've posted on the Patreon for the Hoops crew. People should go and check that one out. If you haven't checked that video out, I paid respect to the 7 departing players. And to catch people up on who those were, we're talking about Gary Rowan, Brandon Parfitt, we're talking about Emerson Jecker, we're talking about Mitch Hardy, we're talking about James Willis, we're talking about Oscar Murdoch, we're talking about Phoenix Foster, friend of the show, Phoenix Foster. There's been a lot of departures in the space, well, in one fell swoop. And I am certainly interested to explore what happens from here for those players, for the Cats list, in terms of recruiting, in terms of drafting, in terms of rookie lists, all of those sorts of possibilities. I want to kind of wax with you a little bit about that. And I posted some thoughts on Twitter, and I'll see if I can really quickly draw those up while we're talking through it. But I brought up some like my initial thoughts, and just like, holy crap, we've lost 9 players. That is a huge number of players to lose from the club in one fell swoop. And we had a few different thoughts kind of emerge from fans, and I'm really appreciative of those who've kind of shared their thoughts so far. And I'm going to project that in a second for people to have a bit of a look through, because there is quite a bit to go through here. So let's share the screen again and kind of pass through a little bit of what's going on here. So I mentioned I was kind of stunned by how deeply we've cut. And this was very much my gut impression at first. There's 9 empty spots on the playing list that need filling, and there's some big voids that we need to fill. And that's absolutely true. Gary Rowan is a huge loss. Brandon Parfitt, while I think the writing was maybe on the wall a little bit, and certainly the speculation had been mounting over the course of a few months amongst fans, and even the media had spoken about it a little bit, he's still a big loss because he is an important depth player for the list. But he's gone. Gary Rowan's gone. And then a huge number of players that were yet to debut join them. And again, this is all on top of Tom Hawkins and Zach Tui. So we'll kind of pour through some of the responses here. Frank cited that it was the same man as last year. Frank and I have kind of bounced back and forth. There were 7 all up last year, inclusive of the couple of retirements. This is even larger than that, but 7, 9, it's all about the same, really. We're talking big numbers there. Do you think there's a possibility that we may rookie list some players, hoping that Foster or Mitch Hardy could make the rookie list? And I kind of mentioned my thoughts there. Look, we here at the Hoops crew have a specific love for Phoenix Foster. He's been on a bunch of our content over the years. I chat with him regularly. and very much hope that Phoenix lands on his feet, whether that's with the Cats or someone else. I'll talk more about Phoenix, though, and kind of what it means, I guess, for future Cats movements in a moment. But when it comes to Mitch Hardy, I've also been saying for quite a few months that there was clearly something he was doing that the Cats coaches weren't happy with, because his numbers look great. He finished 4th in the VFL best and fairest, and yet was never given a debut, and lots of players kind of passed him over the course of the season. And from my mind, there was clearly something that the coaches were unhappy with that they probably pointed out to him, but he wasn't able to execute on. And so the time came, and after 18 months, he was gone. The depth of the draft. So Rob here talks about the draft being deep, and next year it becomes more compromised with Tassie starting to emerge, bit of back and forth between a few people around the Tassie emergence date and when they kind of start taking an effect. And while I do appreciate that, my thoughts on the Bailey Smith move specifically is that we're going to have to give away at least a first round pick this year. And so suddenly we're out of that top 30, and there's apparently 30 players, like the top half a dozen are apparently exceptional. And then 7 through 30, you could just throw a blanket over them and they're all brilliant. It's not that they're all mediocre, it's that they're all brilliant. You could make an argument for the person who's being picked, pick 30, potentially being picked up in the top 10, depending on the priorities of the different clubs. So that's a really fascinating prospect. And we might be kind of missing out on all of that due to the fact that we're going after Bailey Smith. And I have no opposition to us picking up Bailey Smith. But in terms of the drafting possibilities, maybe that top 30 is something we're going to miss. Now, the Cats have proven time and time again to be brilliant when it comes to working the bottom half of the draft pool. And, we've seen the likes of Lawson Humphreys come through and absolutely explode. Sean Manor was the same. We've done it for years, and I can totally see us doing it again. And I'm hopeful that we do, because, of course, we are still going to have picks in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, depending on how it all plays out. And obviously some of those picks will then come in as more occurs. But I am firmly of the mind that it would be nice to have one or two in the third, like in that top 30. And how we massage that, I guess, remains to be seen. Dave talks about how we have to go hard before Tassie comes in. Absolutely. Every club who does its due diligence is going to try and make sure it tops up at least a bit before Tassie comes along, because we saw it happen with Gold Coast and GWS. The drafts will be compromised in that time. And then Darren cites the fact that it's a correct move, like trimming excess fat from a nice piece of lamb chops, leaving the best cut and meat, in his opinion. Totally get all those thoughts. And let's kind of pick through things a little bit more now. We're going to jump across to the Cats list and talk a little bit about who we've got left and what potential priorities the club needs to address now through its drafting and trading periods, and free agency periods, I should say. Let's begin by, I guess, knocking two things on the head straight away. Bailey Smith is going to be a Cat. He hasn't declared the club yet, but he'll be a Cat, and we'll do what we have to do, I guess, to bring him in. But we do have the whip hand in this particular case. And so hopefully we don't have to pay a premium as we've had to do for some others in the past, like Jeremy Cameron. Totally worth it. Of course, 2022 premiership. Probably wouldn't have had it without Jeremy Cameron. But there's obviously Jack Martin. We've put a video up about Jack Martin. Looks like we're going to get him through free agency if he does, in fact, go to the Cats. And so that's going to be great, because it's going to cost us absolutely nothing outside of his pay packet, which is going to be pretty reasonable from all reports, $350,000 to $400,000 a year. I wish I was earning that. But for an AFL player, a pretty reasonable sort of pay packet. Now we start to look at the rest of the list here. Brandon Parfitt, gone. Zach Tui, gone. Reece Stanley, probably only 1 year left. Tanner Bruin's the future. Jeremy Cameron's got a few years in him still. Toby Conway seems to be our future for the ruck. We just need his body to get right. Sean Mannor's been brilliant. J. Cole Jasney signed on. Max Holmes is the future. Mitch Nevitt, I sincerely hope, is the future. And hopefully we stop torching him whenever he gets opportunities in the seniors. Mitch Edwards is that next backup ruckman for Toby Conway, and hopefully develops into something pretty brilliant himself. Jack Bowes is going to be around for a while. Joe Clark is the future. Connor O'Sullivan's the future. George Stevens is the future. Sam DeConing. Stay tuned for a dedicated video about Sam DeConing and all the reporting about him to come, but he's the future. Lawson Humphreys, the future. Tyson Stengel's the future. Phoenix Foster, gone. James Willis, gone. Ollie Wiltshire is still on the list at the end of his first season. Mitch Duncan, 1 year left on his contract, I believe. And the sentiment from Cats fans I'm seeing online is that he'll be done at the end of the next year as well. And I can see it. it does feel like he's maybe limping to the finish line a little bit. That, or he's been far more hampered with some injury this year than we were ever aware of. Gary Rowan, gone. Jed Bewes is about to re-sign, which is brilliant because I think he had a sensational back end of the season once he made the seniors. Tom Hawkins, gone. Oh, that hurt. Ollie Dempsey's the future. Cam Guthrie might only have a couple of years left. Tom Atkins, Oscar Murdoch, gone. Graham Myers, the future. Shannon Neal's the future. Oisin Mullins, the future. Paddy Dangerfield's about to sign on for 2 years. Ollie Henry's the future. Joe Furphy, mid-20s, shows a lot of promise. Ruck possibility as well. Future. Jack Henry's going to be around for quite some time. Zach Guthrie's still going to be around for quite some time. Ted Closey's still on the list and is getting close. All reports is he is really pushing and pushing and pushing. We've obviously seen him getting close to full-time gigs with the Cats over the course of the season. Close, but not quite so far. But I think it's only a matter of time. Mitch Hardy gone. Mark O'Connor will stick around for a while. Emerson Jecker's gone. Tom Stewart, close. And Blitzarves, they're all going to be there for quite some time still. Although Mark Blitzarves is getting closer to the end at this point. So what you might have noticed, I guess, as we go through this and we reflect on the fact that, for example, Phoenix Foster is gone, paired with Tom Hawkins being gone, is that our tall forward stocks now are limited. My big concern here at this particular point is in the event that Jeremy Cameron goes down with an injury or that Shannon Neal goes down with an injury, is that we don't have a tall forward that can come in and replace those guys. Now, Ollie Henry can play tall. We've just cut Gary Rowan, who can play tall. Speak to Collingwood in 2022, the 2022 qualifying final. They know a bit about that. But we don't have tall forward stocks. Now, unless Sam De Koning is going to be reworked again into a forward, and that's kind of where he began, and it wasn't quite working, and then he went to defence, and he basically was playing all Australian level in 2022 and came runner-up in the Rising Star. Unless we plan on flipping those magnets around and sending him forward again, we don't have any stocks there. And so I guess the first thing that springs to mind when it comes to the Cats recruiting and drafting is tall forwards. Now, of course, there is the report going back a couple of months now about Jake Waterman. And to this day, as of when I record this, I should say, he still has not signed yet. And so it gives me more reason to think that maybe there's a possibility he comes across where there's smoke, there's fire, and I'm smelling smoke. A player at a club like West Coast who would be desperate to hang on to him and hasn't signed on seems a bit sus. And so I'm hopeful. I'm not going to say it's done. This is far more speculation and hope than anything else. But that could be a possibility, and that certainly adds the depth that we need. And if someone does go down, there's still two other excellent key forward options there. And I think those three of them can coexist in the same forward line. So I don't really see too many dramas there, but it'd be great to have another tall forward. And if not, let's draft some young key forwards to give us that depth and give us that future for a Jeremy Cameron-less future that's 3, 4, 5 years away. Depends. He's super athletic and he's got qualities that few players have. So he could stick around for quite some time yet. But I'd like to see that underbelly start to get developed in the key position forward stocks. Similar sort of deal defensively with Emerson Jacob gone now. Don't get me wrong. I don't think Emerson was getting close to cracking the seniors or anything like that. But with him gone, our key defensive stocks are a little bit limited as well. I know we went into this final series and didn't have Sam De Koning play, who is a brilliant key defender. But we didn't play him for some reason. But, presuming he comes back in the team, I don't see a Jack Henry or Jake Kolodjasny getting dropped to create the room for him. So they're going to have to coexist. So then if Sam's in the team, I don't see anyone else there coming through. So that might be an opportunity for us to explore things a little bit as well. I know Connor O'Sullivan's listed as a key defender. He's 198 centimeters, but he does give off a lot of Tom Stewart kind of floating half-back intercept sort of vibes, though he has proven he's capable and he's got the size to be able to play key defensive. So there's some possibilities there. Maybe. Beyond that, of course, the eternal conversation about the ruck is going to be there. And of course, with Rhys Stanley pretty close to the end, Toby Conway showing signs that his body just won't quite allow him to play at the level frequently enough. And then Mitch Edwards being very, very early in his development, Joe Furphy still being quite early on in his development as well. It's going like maybe there's something to be said for going out and recruiting a ruckman through the draft or through trade. We'll see how it goes there. And then, of course, beyond that, it's all about midfield depth. And that's where I think we'll be drafting at this point. And I guess the club has come to the realization or is of the belief that some of these players, Murdoch, Willis, Hardy, the mids amongst it, Brandon Parfitt amongst them, are not going to be part of that long-term future, maybe not even part of the short-term future. And so let's try some other kids. I have to presume that is kind of the thinking. So we're bringing in two, quite likely, in Bailey Smith and Jack Martin. Potentially the Jake Waterman thing. What do you believe the Cats need to do? Let's focus on the two that we've all. I think there's quiet confidence about this point that is Bailey Smith and Jack Martin. What do the Cats need to do beyond that? Let me know in the comments what you're thinking. What does the list build for 2025 look like? Who do we chase? Is there someone out there that's not being discussed? Have you heard rumblings? What do you believe is the type of player that the Cats need to be drafting? What sort of picks do we need to be chasing? Do we back Stephen Wells and his team to do what they do so well at the back end of the draft? Or do we need to try and top up and get into that top 30 with a couple other selections just to get some free swings at some potentially quite brilliant players? Let me know what you think in the comments anyway. If you haven't already, check out the Patreon where there's a whole range of exclusive early access and extended content, $5 for the month, and that'll get you access to all of it. We're going to keep pumping stuff out even in the off season, all around the men's comp. The women's comp's still going to be doing its thing too. There's lots of content from the Hoops Crew for you to check out. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Lots of content still going up there, and we are doing some incredible numbers at the moment, and we are so thankful to all of you who've been tuning in. We very much appreciate it, and stay with us through this trade period as well, because there'll be lots of videos coming there as well. Socially, you can find me at Paul James Games. The team is at the Hoops Crew. And until next time, remain Geelong strong. Thank you very, very much to all of the incredible players who've been a part of the Geelong family for 1 year, 2 years, or longer. We really appreciate it. Special shout out to Brandon Parfitt and Gary Rowan. Thank you for your part in the 2022 Premiership. We'll be eternally thankful for that. Everyone, please remain Geelong strong, and I'll see you next time.